a great time at your house last night, I said. Me too, she said. Me three, a quiet voice whispered, but there were only 2 of us there. Oh, hi, boos and ghouls. Are you ready for a scary story? My name's Megan, if you're new here, and if not, welcome back to Here She Lies, a fact or fiction horror podcast that will have you questioning everything you once held dear. Each week, we'll dive into another heart-stopping tale of terror. Some of them are true, and others are just big, fat fibs. It's up to you guys to decide which is which. If you're watching over on YouTube, please smash the like and subscribe buttons. And if you're tuning in via your favourite podcast app, then don't forget to leave a big, juicy 5-star review. Is it true? Is it not true? Make sure you have your say either in the comments box below or over on our Instagram page at Here She Lies Podcast. Hiya gremlins! You guys have no idea how excited I've been for this little spooky sleepover / listener tales episode. I've been dying to do a little chill night in where we just tell scary stories and eat our feelings. It's safe to say that at some point during this episode, I will have something stuck in my teeth, but we just need to ignore it, okay? It's just part of the fun. A wee sippy sip before we get started. Is there anything better than an ice-cold cherry cola? Mwah. Perfection. What are you guys snacking on? I'm nosy, so let me know what you're having in the comments. First, let me think if I have any life updates for you. I mean, we did have our very first Here She Lies troll just the other day. I won't name any names because obviously they're just despacito for attention, but I would like to address something real fast. It's about my fake tan. You see, I, like most people, go very pale in the winter.
I'm so pale.
And I have to admit that on occasion I get a little bit generous with the San Marits. But sometimes when we're out in the woods filming, because remember, we are 110% in the woods.
Sure, Jan.
That the lighting can actually make me look slightly more orange than I am in person. Long story longer, I've decided to take a wee bit of a break from the fake tan. I do think that it might have been divine intervention that God sent that troll my way, because I have actually been breaking out quite badly from wearing fake tan. I don't know if they've changed up the formula. I've used the same tan forever, but it's really perfumey now, and honestly it's really been messing with my skin. So for now, you will address me as Count Dracula of Wallachia, because I'm genuinely that pale. But it's important to remember that this is my choice and I did it for me, not because of a troll, alright? Okay, now that we've got all that nasty business settled, I'm gonna dive in to this pizza. And I'm a wee bit curious, what is your, oh messy girl, what's your pizza order? I'm a pepperoni mushroom girl myself. P.S. If the next words out of your mouth are about to be pineapple, just don't, okay? We can't have the Italian ancestors rolling in their graves. Anywho, before I forget why we're actually here, I'll reveal the answer to last week's episode. For those who have already forgotten, and don't worry, I'm not judging, my memory is shite as well, we followed young lovers Kendra and Ellie on their search for the perfect home. Ellie was quite picky, whereas Kendra was willing to overlook pretty much anything as long as it matched her aesthetic, even bleeding walls and a dark presence. Did you believe the story about the bungalow with the mysterious iron deficiency? Well, if you did, I'm afraid to say that your instincts are frighteningly good, because it was true. See, while some names and details have been given the old razzle-dazzle, this was based on true events. This took place in Sydney, Australia a few years back, and it was actually a man and his girlfriend that were house hunting. The guy invited his sister along so she could give her opinion, but when the girlfriend walked into the kitchen, she saw blood dripping down the walls. Feeling like an absolute nutter, she said nothing until the man's sister grabbed her arm and started screaming, "Do you see that?" The brother wasn't too bothered by any of this, but unsurprisingly, neither woman ever set foot in the home again. The history of the home and what became of it after these events remains a mystery to this day. So who knows? If you're from Sydney, Australia, it might just be your house. I'm sorry, that was pure evil, but I mean, it could be. Right, now that I've probably traumatised an entire nation of listeners, it's time for some scary stories. Welcome to Here She Lies. I call this one Listener Tales, Episode 1. Okay, so our first wee story comes from John. Hi, John. And he had an encounter with what sounds like either a mimic or a Wendigo. Once, when I was between the ages of 13 and 17, I had a Wendigo approach the house at 1:30 a.m. Initially, the Wendigo stood behind the house, next to my bedroom. From that spot, using my dad's angry voice, it shouted at me to come inside. Everyone, including my dad, was in the house and lying in their beds. The Wendigo was projecting telepathically at me, thus I was the only one who heard the shouts. And sorry to interrupt, but that is actually something I've heard quite a lot. I've been watching a lot of these, scary TikToks, and a lot of people say that if it's a mimic, sometimes you can hear it and no one else in the house can. As the Wendigo continued to telepathically shout at me, it walked around to the end of the house and eventually positioned itself directly in front of the living room door. As I heard the Wendigo walk and shout around the edge of the house, I jumped out of my bed and followed its progress. Oh, can you imagine that? Just like following it as it walks around your house, probably looking for a way in. When it passed in front of the large living room window, I got an extremely good look at it. That night, the moon was full, and additionally, we have a truck stop kitty corner across the road. When the Wendigo walked past that window, the lights of the truck stop shone through, between the bare ribs and around the bare bones of the Wendigo. This thing was tall, including the antlers which wrapped around in a droopy kind of way. This thing was at least 12 feet tall. It had the skull of a deer and the eye sockets were completely black and hollow. Through the door, using my own angry voice, I shouted something at the Wendigo. At that point, my mother woke up and very drowsily she stumbled into the dark living room. She said to me, "Who are you shouting at?" Although I knew that my reply didn't make much sense, I told my mother, "I'm yelling at Dad. He's outside yelling at me to come outside." My mother then said, "Your dad is asleep in his own bed. Go back to sleep." As I returned to my bed, the Wendigo upped his game. Using his incredible telepathy, he began to make me subconsciously chew at my own lips. It wasn't until I felt the pain in my lips that I realised what was happening. As I lay in bed, I focused all my attention upon clenching my teeth in an effort to prevent any further chewing of my lips. This is horrific. I should probably also mention that for several hours, beginning at around 9 p.m. on the prior evening, the Wendigo initially began stalking me right outside my house. During those hours between 9 p.m. and midnight, the Wendigo produced a strange hissing sound continuously. It sounded like sss, 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 over and over again. If you ever hear this sound produced in a sustained manner across several hours, it means that you are actively being stalked by a Wendigo. See, I'm not really scared by much, okay? In my mind, humans are the real monsters, but something that can trick me into thinking that it's someone I love and trust, nah. I don't like it, I don't want it near me, I don't want to smell it. I'm just going to close the windows. If I hear something, no I didn't. I'd like to pretend that they're not real, but with more and more stories like this coming out, it's either the world is full of pathological liars or Wendigo sightings are on the rise. I'm gonna have a wee sweetie break now, and oh my god, sorry, don't chew with your mouth open, Megan, Jesus.
Close your mouth, sweetie, you look like a trout.
Have you guys tried these? These are literally amazing. It's the blue raspberry Sour Patch Kids. Oh my god, they're so good. I'm not really much of a sweet tooth, which I understand is hilarious because I've literally got heart attack in a can right here, but I really, really love those, and I don't like chocolate or gummy worms or any kind of gelatin sweets, but they're good. What are you guys eating tonight? Make me jealous. I love my food. I can't cook to save my life, as we've seen on this channel before, but I like being fed, if you get me. Anyway, before I start salivating again, it's time for my very own personal favourite genre of horror story. It's babysitting gone wrong. I don't know what it is, but the whole vibe just speaks to me. Okay, When a Stranger Calls, the one from the early 2000s, is my literal comfort movie. It's just peak horror cinema. This babysitting story comes from Reddit username Chewbacca, not that one. I was in my first year at uni and we hadn't been able to get digs, so we lodged with a local family. They were pretty open about the house being haunted, but I hadn't really experienced anything myself. One night the parents go out and ask us to watch their 8-year-old child who's upstairs in his room. Meanwhile, me and my mates are downstairs watching TV. We heard children's footsteps running up the stairs, so I call out and say, "It's bedtime, buddy." About 10 minutes later, we hear the same thing, so I go upstairs into the room and I said, "Okay, buddy, it's past your bedtime, stop messing around." The kid looked at me and said it wasn't me, so I said out loud to the room, "Okay, it's past your bedtime, don't make me tell you off too." I said it in jest, but the whole atmosphere changed in the room, and it went icy cold, and I could see my breath. The kid put his head under the duvet. Well, obviously I'm slightly shaken up by this, and I said out loud, "No, I'm not having any temper tantrums. Get out before I throw you out myself." I then heard these footsteps walk straight past me and out of the room, and the atmosphere went back to normal. I told the parents what happened, and apparently just before we moved in, the neighbour's son had been killed in a hit and run. The boys had been close friends, and the parents had heard him occasionally talking to someone after his friend passed. As daft as it sounds, I just rolled with it and didn't outwardly show any fear. In the future, if things ever got boisterous in the house, I would literally just call out, and he would always stop. Kids can be so bloody creepy. I mean, I remember when me and my sister were about 2 and 5, we used to scare the living shite out of my mum on a daily basis. I do actually think they were both quite spiritually sensitive, but she took it to a whole other level. Like, seriously, she would talk to herself more than she would talk to anyone else. This is quite a funny wee story. So my mum was up in I think it was 1994 watching Chucky, and it had just come onto one of the only 5 channels that you actually got back then. So she's watching this horror movie and I'm asleep in my crib and my sister is meant to be asleep in her bed. But my mum then hears a conversation, like 2 voices going back and forth, so she assumes that the 2 of us are up gabbing past our bedtime. Spoiler alert, we were not. My mum comes into the room and my sister is sitting up in her bed wide awake. Wondering what the hell Danny, that's my sister's name by the way, is doing, she asks her that same question. But before she answers, Danny turns her head to the left as if she's listening to someone or something. And then, with a deadpan, serious face, she looks right at my mum and says, "Chucky says hello." Nah. My mum pulls Danny out the bed, grabs me out the crib, and literally without even locking the door, she bolts down the road to my nana's house. She never forgot about that night, and to be fair, so many other weird things happened in that house before we finally took the hint and moved out. When people say that a house has like a dark energy, I know it sounds a bit woo-woo, but I was 8 years old when we left that house, and I still, to this day, remember exactly how it made me feel. There was this big, long corridor to get to the bathroom, and I will never forget, it literally still to this day, it gives me the heebie-jeebies thinking about it. And it's not just me, like every member of our family says that that was a bad house. But enough about me and my childhood traumas. It's time for another scary listener's tale, and this one comes from our beautiful gremlin Ashley, who has been with me since the dawn of time. Seriously, she's seen every single hair colour. The blue was extra special, wasn't it, Ashley? So Ashley wrote in about her own haunted/possessed house experience, and I have been saving this one for you guys because it is scary. Like, buckle up. I will do a wee tiny trigger warning. It does involve the death of an animal, but I will try and ice skate over that as quickly as I can. My parents were active duty Air Force and we got stationed in Germany. We got this awesome 100-year-old farmhouse with a basement, an attic and 2 other floors. The basement was just unfinished stone walls and dirt floors, but those floors had multiple people-sized mounds. Oh, that place is going to be haunted. I am an only child, so there was only the 3 of us. At the start, I started hearing whispering when I was alone. I'd be in bed and wake up to dark figures standing around me, leaning over. I knew they were bad and would scream until my parents came in, but the lights would come on and nothing. My mum was home alone once and heard a ball bouncing up the stairs, so she went to look. The ball was somehow then found next to me as I slept in my bed under the covers. Another time she was cooking and saw me run past the kitchen door and into the pantry. It's always the bloody pantry, isn't it? Bleeding walls, pantry, ghost children, pantry. My mum stepped out to tell me no snacks before dinner, but I wasn't in there. I was in the living room with my dad and had been for over an hour. The voices soon started telling me to open and walk through the door. My mum would find me standing on the wall over the basement, trying to go through the door. There was no door, only a high wall, but the things that watched me at night told me that there was and pushed me to walk through. When I was younger, I got a kitten. Trigger warning, it's about a kitten. We got it all set up and put it in our big bathroom with a bed and food etc. for the night until we got a safer setup sorted the next day. However, the next morning, my parents found it head hanging with an obvious broken neck. My parents started hearing whispers and loud bumps when I wasn't even home. My nightly visitors started shaking my bed and making threats, etc. When it got to the point that it was an everyday thing, I was withdrawing and scared all of the time, my parents got really worried. They were trying initially to finish out our lease, but one night the visitors woke me and I tried to run to my parents, but I couldn't. It felt like hands holding me back. It hurt. I screamed and my dad ran in. He grabbed me and put me in their bed. As we laid there, however, this rectangle door-shaped thing started shimmering on their ceiling. As it got brighter, my parents saw it, so they grabbed me and we ran over to a hotel. Movers came the next day and packed up the house. I had fresh bruises from where I'd been held. My dad had fresh scratches from where he'd grabbed me. I did a bit of research years ago, and supposedly a lot of Nazi soldiers had died close by, as well as regular German people. I honestly don't know what it was, but I know we aren't crazy. We experience things together and separately. I don't blame the skeptics. If I hadn't lived through it, I definitely wouldn't believe it. Well, Ashley, thank you for your story, and I will say that I 110,000,000% believe it to be true, because everyone knows that a lot of bad juju still hangs around that part of Germany. You know, genocide will do that to a place. Now, I'm not an expert on all that stuff by any means, but it actually sounds straight up demonic, especially with like the bruises and then the scratches you mentioned. That is my worst nightmare. Can you imagine finding like your dream home and then it has some nasty dark energy attached to it? Ooh. Then it's like that moral dilemma as well. Do you sell it on to the next poor bastard and not mention that there's something happening in the house? I always feel really bad for the kids that have to grow up with that heaviness around them, because it must be a lot. Also, totally random, but it popped into my head during the episode. Do any of you guys remember this like weird hoax TV show back in like 1992 on the BBC called Ghostwatch? It was advertised as some sort of paranormal documentary filmed in real time for Halloween night. It was even hosted by the absolute legend that is Parkinson, aka Parky. The premise of the show was that the BBC were going to record 24 hours in a real life haunted house. The family, who claimed that they were being stalked by a poltergeist called Pipes, consisted of 2 young girls and their single mum. It's all fun and games at the beginning. The TV crew are interviewing the family and some neighbours about all this weird shiz that's apparently happening in town. But of course, things turn freaky fast and Pipe comes out to play shortly after the girls are put to bed. The setup for the show was a wee bit bizarre and, looking back, probably morally questionable. The BBC network heavily advertised this as a real-life documentary, even setting up a fake phone line so the audience members could call in with their own paranormal experiences. It was pretty elaborate for the early 90s, but the issue is that it was all fake. Now, I will say, at the time, the British public were clearly fairly gullible, okay? A few keys short of a keyboard, for sure. But they wholeheartedly believed that this was a legit live feed recording, and all completely above board, which of course, it was not. The 2 girls featured and their mother were actors, along with the parapsychologist who claimed to back them up. 11 million people tuned in to Ghostwatch at 9:25 p.m. on Halloween night, and over 30,000 viewers would complain when it was revealed that it was all one big fat hoax. To be fair, if the horrific acting skills of the mother and her 2 daughters didn't make that clear, then I'm actually worried about you. A lot of people were genuinely pissed off about it, and after all of those complaints, the programme would officially be banned from the air for 10 years, which is mental. But one of the weirdest things to have happened in the wake of Ghostwatch was probably the death of 18-year-old factory worker Martin Denham. Martin stayed in Nottingham with his mum April, dad Percy and brother Gavin, who was 14 at the time. On Halloween night, the family snuggled up on the sofa and tuned in to BBC One. But during the broadcast, Martin started acting a wee bit off. He cuddled up into a ball and started mumbling to himself. Mum April asked if he was okay, and he said he was, so they just kept watching. Over the next few days, Martin became obsessed with talking about ghosts. You see, the Denhams had been experiencing some of the same phenomenon that featured in the Ghostwatch episode. They'd been having plumbing issues, and the rattling of the pipes was very similar to what was happening to the young family, hence the reason why they called the poltergeist pipes. Now, of course, there was nothing to this apart from an overdue plumbing job, but Martin would fixate on it an unhealthy amount, and sadly, no one thought to get him any sort of mental health treatment. Just 5 days after the original air date, Percy and April went to work, but when they returned home, they found that Martin had taken his own life. I always remember there was like a note in his pocket and it said something like, "If there are ghosts out there, I'm one of them now, Mum." So just really, really a sad situation. In the aftermath of Martin's death, his parents were understandably angry and looking for someone to blame. They spoke to many UK newspapers and claimed that there had never been any warning signs and that Martin had nothing wrong with him. However, that wasn't necessarily true. I can completely understand his parents wanting to place the blame elsewhere, but Martin actually had severe learning difficulties, and despite him being 18 physically, mentally he was closer to about 12 or 13. He also exhibited some concerning behaviours during and after the initial release of the Ghostwatch episode, and these red flags were missed. I think the family did try and take some sort of legal action against the BBC, but not much came of it, and the BBC resorted to releasing an apology to its viewers for the confusion. The whole thing was just really heartbreaking, and it did lead to the BBC banning any future features that may portray paranormal activity in a convincing or realistic manner. If you've not seen it, I would suggest giving it a go. I watch it every Halloween, and although it has aged like a glass of lukewarm milk, it's silly, 90s, stupid fun, and definitely worth a watch. Just remember though, it's not real. Well, Gremlins, as fun as our wee sleepover has been, I'm absolutely shattered, so I think it's time to call it a night. Remember, if you want to hear your story on the pod, then please send them over to heresheliespodcast@gmail.com. I hope you liked this week's episode. If you did, please smash those like, subscribe and notification bell buttons. It really helps this wee channel. And don't forget to leave a big juicy 5-star review wherever you watch your podcasts. If you'd like to see what this little weirdo gets up to in her free time, then feel free to follow me. Not home, because that's illegal. On Instagram @MeganTrueStories or over on TikTok @HereSheLiesPodcast. Remember, Gremlins, I love you all so, so much. So please lock your doors, don't pee in the sleeping bag, and I'll see you next week. Bye! Or should I say, good night.